Not just show, but some people, like in general, like have within your power.
Any of you in this class have read the book of Job, actually? No? A little bit? Okay. Should we just talk about the book of Job for a little bit? Okay. It's always nice to have some background. The book of Job is perhaps the oldest book of the Old Testament. For those of you in this class who at times are happy and take joy in some of the things that life offers you, and then you become sad because they're taken away, you should read the book of Job. It's not so much about Job and God, it's about how life gifts us and then takes those gifts away, and then you have no choice but to be sad and complain and scream and yell and shout, only to realize that there is really no one out there who can hear you. And your friends will come to console you, your parents will come to comfort you, but there is nothing. So whenever we talk about some of these perhaps religious concepts or ideas or traditions, and don't put them in a box and say, well, religion is yucky and so it's not worth reading. Make them more human, relevant to your own life. If you happen to be somewhat creative, it is very much possible. So Job is a man who is, like me, arrogant, self-righteous, has gone to school for a few years and thinks that he knows a thing or two about a thing or two. God likes Job very much. In fact, when Satan approaches him, and of course God initially is looking for Satan and can't find Satan, and when Satan all of a sudden appears, God looks at looks at Satan and asks, where have you been? And Satan says, on earth. And for those of you who are intellectuals and somewhat curious, you need to ask yourself, if Satan is a fallen angel, why does he have a free pass to come down here and go back to heaven? And why is it that God asking him where he's been, if God is all-knowing? Hello, Kendra. So, and of course, Satan looks at God and says, I've been down on earth, and God becomes curious, asking, have you seen my favorite servant, Job? I love him. He's religious, he's wonderful, he's a great human being. And Satan says, no, he's not. My nephew Armand graduated from NYU with a master's degree. He's only 22, 23. He's a great kid. But he hasn't yet been touched by life. And though he has a master's degree at such a young age, once life touches him, he's going to be so incompetent. He won't have the tools. And his parents, despite how much they may love him, can't do much. His sister, Kiana, is equally the same. She's going to Brown. She's 22. She has his master's. One of the nice things about the book of Job is all of us in this class, you think you have patience, you think you have stamina, you think you're clever, intelligent, insightful. Hello, Abi. And then something happens to your life, and you realize you lack the patience. You're really not cunning or intelligent at all. You're quite stupid and dumb. And so one of the nice things about reading the book of Job is that when life touches you, you just fall apart, And the problem with life touching you is that it doesn't leave anything behind. It takes everything away. It's like a hurricane. It demolishes everything. It's like if you have had a great relationship with your parents, with your mom, your dad, and all of a sudden they come to you and say, I have cancer. Or maybe you just wake up waiting for them to come out so you can make them a cup of coffee, but they never wake up. You've contemplated about death. You've read some books about death. You've talked to your therapist about death, but when your father is there no more, it seems as if his passing has also stolen all the meaning from your life. Everything, despite being a nice sunny day, everything becomes dark and gloomy. Satan knows something that God doesn't. God is way up there with his ridiculous judgments about what's good, what's bad, what's right, what's wrong. Satan knows none of those really mean anything. It's a joke. God is a joke. And the only way that God can unjoke himself, and those who are religious can... Hello, Ahmed. And those who are religious can truly understand the religious spirit is for Satan to come down and provide some events. And he does. The first thing that Satan does, if of course you happen to be a chosen human being, is that he takes away all the things that Job loves on the outside. I love my wife, I love my kids, I love my job, I love my parents, I love my siblings. Before I can be touched personally, all the things to which I'm attached need to be taken away to see whether or not I have the stamina to suffer internally about the things that are very, very personal to me, not so much things on the outside that give me meaning and guidance and direction. And so Satan comes down and gets rid of Job's animals, gets rid of his kids. Job is still very religious. He said, God gives and God takes away. Mrs. Job can't understand. Women can never be really good teachers. And I'm not talking about teachers at Laney or Berkeley or Stanford. Women simply can't be good teachers of the spiritual or the wisdom tradition. It may be a curse, it may be a blessing, I don't really know. You may consider my statement to be biased, bigoted, whatever, that's fine as well. I'm too sick to argue. But women do have a gift that men don't. Women can give birth to children, and they will have meaning for the rest of their life. They will have worries about their kids for the rest of their life. They'll be grounded for the rest of their life, grounded by their kids. And that is such a blessing. You don't really find very many women going out in the desert like Jesus or Moses or Muhammad trying to figure out who they are. They can basically find that by getting married and having children and taking care of their parents. Satan goes up to God, and God is extremely happy because God looks at Job and says, did you see? Job did not blaspheme. And Satan again laughs at God, saying, I don't think you really understand. Job is a man. Job is a religious man. Job is a man who worships God. And everything is secondary for Job. Job first loves God, then his kids, then his goats, then his wife, But the most important that he takes care of or cares about is God. So he's not really as attached to the things outside as other people. I remember I was driving to Laney some years ago, about 4:30 in the morning. This person ran the red light and hit me, the back bumper. And I had to figure out if I want to stop and exchange information or just say, forget it, let me just go to campus and do writing. To stop and have the other person stop, and maybe have a couple of police officers there, it's going to take about an hour and two. That's a complete waste of time. And my car had already been banged up enough. I didn't much care, so I just drove to campus, came to my office, made myself a cup of coffee, and that was that. And that's the thing when you don't really care for the things that you have. It's a very privileged place to be. It can be a plate or a cup. Money doesn't really matter. Time, health. God looks at Satan and says, "Why are you laughing?" He says, "I'm going to show you something. I'm going to go down there and touch Job directly. Touch him, himself, his body, his physical body. I'm going to get him very close to the concept of death, where it's no longer an abstract thing. I'm going to get him sick. He's no longer going to be looking at his friends as they're getting older and sicker. I'm going to get him sick to the point that he may in fact die. And his relationship with time is going to change. His relationship with his body is going to change. His relationship with value and meaning and time are going to change." And God says, "Fine, just don't touch him, don't kill him. Reveal all those things to him." So for those of you in this class who once in a while want to get rid of everything and go to the mountains in search of your spiritual identity or on a spiritual quest, you need to understand to do anything the right way, some sacrifices have to be made. And for the spiritual tradition, the way it goes is the things that exist on the outside of your life, your companion, your kids, your car, your job, you will have to lose them. But you will still have hope that you will remarry, that you will have other children, that you will have a new job, that you will have a new place to live. You're still hopeful despite having lost everything. And that hope is the rope to which you hang on and get yourself out of this dark pit. See, Job lost everything, but he still believed in God. He still worshiped God. He still said, "God gives and God taketh." And when his wife comes to him and says, "Why don't you curse God and die? How could you worship such a deity?" Job says, "Life is too grand. Life is too mysterious. God is too mysterious. I'm not in the mind of God. I don't know his reasons for what he does and what he doesn't. I simply trust God. I have faith." And his wife basically quiets down and goes away. Satan comes down. He no longer touches Job's life on the outside. He touches Job himself. Job wakes up, and like me, he pukes for hours in the office. And when you're in pain, you don't have a wife, you don't have children, you don't have friends, you don't have parents. Pain, by its very nature, pushes you into being profoundly alone and isolated. There is no one under the sun who can be your friend. Sigmund Freud, a very good friend of mine, one of the prophets of the 20th century, he had mentioned that there are 3 slings and arrows that come to the human being, but this final one is the meanest one. You wake up in the morning and your mind works and you make yourself a cup of coffee, you take a shower, you put your clothes on, you go for a walk, you enjoy the sun, the birds, the people. You have hopes, you have dreams. And one of the things about hope is that you give yourself this bonus called time. that you're still young enough, healthy enough to get married, to have children, to go to school, to do this, to do that. That is what hope is. It always lives in the future, always. And we have hope because the present is not completely satisfying. And we have hope because some of the wrinkles that life has given us from the past that have not yet been completely resolved. So remember, hope deals with the future, but it lives in the dissatisfaction of the present and perhaps some of the sorrows of the past or some of the joys that you want to be repeated. So Job still has hope, but now he wakes up. He's sick. As Freud would say, the most trusted and the most faithful of your companion, your physical body, betrays you. You walk, but you want to walk, but you won't carry your body. You want to think, but you have no energy. You don't really care. And little by little, you realize that you're getting sicker. Not only are you losing people on the outside, you're also losing a sense of yourself. I had a friend, we used to play music together for over 20 years. One morning, I get a call and it's her husband. Says to me that my son passed away. He was playing basketball. I went to pick him up. He was only 17. And on the way home to get some food, he passes out and just, by the time we get to the hospital, he's pronounced dead. So in our culture, we went to the mortuary, we washed the corpse, we buried it. The mother was wailing and screaming, the father very stoically, his arms are folded, leaning to a tree. You would think that you would never recover from losing a child, but they did. They bought houses, they sent one of their kids to the medical school, they went to Los Angeles. Life continued. Good morning, Chris. Before I forget, we just put on the schedule a late start class. It's called Philosophy 1, Introduction to Philosophy. It's a class I teach Tuesdays and Thursdays, but it's a short-term class and it's fully online and it's taught by Chris Rubin. Right now we have 4 students, I think. We need 20 for the class to go. So for those of you who think that you may need that class, and you actually do need the class to transfer, make sure you sign up for his class, give him some money. You don't have to do any work. Just joking. But sign up for the class. It's a great class. He's really, really good. He's perhaps the best instructor you will ever experience. So don't forget. And if you show me proof that you have signed up for his class, I give you extra credit. Yeah. And the point is, when you lose things on the outside, when time passes, you will recover from the losses. But when someone tells you you have stage 4 cancer, there is no place to hide. You can laugh for a minute, but cancer will show its face back again. And you will have no choice but to think about your life. For those of you in this class who have ever read the Epic of Gilgamesh, it's a great book. I don't know how old the book is. I mean, the story is about maybe 10, 15, 20 years old, 20,000 years old, because it comes from an oral tradition. Writing is in its infancy. It's only 3,000 years, perhaps. But one of the things that you'll find in the Epic of Gilgamesh is that Gilgamesh does not want to be forgotten. Once in a while I go to YouTube and I type James Baldwin or Socrates or Plato. And I don't know what it is about these people that they refuse to be forgotten. They're like immortal, they're eternal. And I'm not that greedy like Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh does not want to be forgotten. That should he die, for example, an untimely death, he doesn't want his wife to remarry because she can't find anyone as great as he is. Odysseus had a wife whose name was Penelope. She had this feeling that Odysseus is going to go on this spiritual quest and she may never see him again. And she may never find a man like him again. But she also knew that she's a woman, she has needs, she may feel the pangs of loneliness. And she has her husband Odysseus make a bed out of this living olive tree. And just in case the gods try to play a trick on her, that someone would come down and say, "Oh, I am Odysseus," the first thing that she would ask is, "Move this bed. I don't like the way it is in my bedroom." And if it wasn't Odysseus, this man would move the bed, at least try to, only to realize the bed is unmovable because it's connected to a living tradition. If, for example, I was to be told that I have stage 4 cancer and there is no remedy, I look at my life and it's filled with regret. And I will ask the gods for some more time to iron out the wrinkles, to make peace with my dad or my mom, to make the few more years that I have, or maybe minutes that I have, more meaningful. My relationship with time begins to change drastically. I look at my body and I realize how unattractive I'm becoming. I can't eat anymore. My relation to food is changing, to my body is changing, to other people are changing. And when someone comes to my bed to just say hello, I don't want them to pity me. I want them to look at me and see me as the human being that I am, but I won't get that. And that's the thing you need to understand about Job. Satan comes down and touches him. Satan is there to rid him of his life. And Job is angry. Job is upset. All of a sudden, religion for him no longer makes any sense. Compassion makes no sense. Forgiveness makes no sense. Family makes no sense. See, first, it was the things on the outside that were taken from him. Now it's his life that's going to be taken from him. Everything about him now begins to change. I came to class today not canceling it for one reason, to see if I can overcome the way I feel today. If I can hold myself from puking on you guys, literally. And see how long I can, keep going without getting more sick. And you put yourself to test only to realize that cancer 4 is too much. There is no way you can recover from this. Now that you know that you're going to die, you have no hope. You want to live a few years longer. That's the only dream you have. So when you talk about the vacancy of emotions, you can't feel anything about anything. You just become like this frozen piece of ice that nothing penetrates, and you can't exit your own skin to find connection to anything out there. There is this one verse in Rumi's Masnavi, and I'll tell you who this guy is maybe next semester. آتش است این بانگ نای و نیست باد هر که این آتش ندارد نیست باد. Imagine for a moment that I really do have cancer stage 4. You're hearing some noise. You go home, you say, yes, my instructor has cancer. It's air that reaches your ears. And it's a story that reaches your ears. And you use the story as a gossip, table talk, dinner talk, where you and your companion can sit and have a meaningful conversation for 5-10 minutes. But I don't care about the way you think about cancer. I don't care about what you want to talk about to your companion about. You need to understand what I am saying. Cancer, end of life. Everything I've done for the past 60 years, meaningless. Isolation, aloneness, depression. I've been hollowed from within. Can you understand what they mean? Not abstractly, not as concepts. And you don't have to make it so gloomy and grim. The truth is, anyone in this class who's ever had an experience that erupted all these emotions, intense emotions, where you try to tell your companion how you felt, the truth is, all they hear is noise. They don't really see the pain, they don't see the hurt, the destruction that took place within. And that's one of the things about human beings. We walk around assuming that we know this and we know that, we know our companions. Many of you in this class don't have children. Our good friend Josh here has. I think he is the only one who understands what it means to be a parent and how complex it is, how difficult it is, how traumatic of an event it is. The rest of us can read books and maybe assume a thing or two, but he is beyond assumption. And that is what you have in Job. His friends come to console him. And he tells them, you guys just don't get it. It's not about reason. It's not about logic. It's not about Yahweh. Why is this happening to me? I had dreams. I had hopes. And none of them are going to come true. What am I going to do? And then you do something really interesting. Your prayers are no longer, I want a car, I want a degree. He says, I want to die. Why would any human being say, I want to die? There is nothing else to live for. And that is where Job is. It's a really, really great place to be if you have the skin for it. And it has to be thick. And if we were to kind of make the story a bit more dramatic, I suppose, as he went into his kitchen and got out the steak knife, put the knife to his jugular, all of a sudden, very much like a sheep or a goat appearing to Abraham, telling him, you don't need to sacrifice your son. It's okay. God appears to Job and says, you don't need to take your life. All these events took place for one simple reason, for you to journey from outside to the inside, exterior to interior, from having other things satisfy you, to you yourself satisfying yourself. I think it was something that Henry David Thoreau would say, that for a wise man, virtue is sufficient. Not money, not power, virtue, wisdom. And what happens at that point for Job is that he understands what wisdom is. He understands what it means to have the spirit of religion within him. And from that point on, he has more than he ever wanted to. He has 50 kids now, he has 50 wives now, he has 500 cattle now. He doesn't need any of them. He knows who he is from the inside. But for that to happen, he had to lose everything, including the most precious thing that human beings have, which is hopes and dreams. And I don't think very many people have the capacity to actually go on that journey. It's a nice story. You know, it's a nice story that whets your appetite. You think you can do it, but the truth is none of us can. It's too much. So we should just go home and have a good time with your,
So from what I understand, somewhere in between Job getting stage 4 cancer and wanting to die, part of the story is experiencing these losses and coming to terms with them, and kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, please, but kind of getting a thicker skin as time goes on and saying like, oh, my cattle is sick. That's that is okay. So my question is, in that process of having these experiences and being unmoved by them, is your ability to feel sorrow or anger or happiness?
It goes away.
So is by the end of the book, is Job even happy?
عشق در دریای غم غمناک نیست. For those of you in this class who have been in love, and once in a while you would wake up and you would feel like crap because the person that you want to be around is not there, you pick up your notepad and a pencil and you write poetry. It's filled with sorrow and longing, separation, and you want union, but it's not there. And you can only find it by writing this beautiful poem. You're in a very, very sad place. And the way you express your sadness is through poetry. Time passes. And by chance, as you're looking at the books on your bookshelf, you come upon this notebook. And it takes you back about 5 years. And you read it and say, man, this is beautiful. Did I really write this? And you want to put yourself in the same mood to write the same kind of poetry, but it doesn't come because you're happy. And all of a sudden you realize it's a strange thing. Out of sadness, out of longing, out of perhaps depression comes this beautiful poetry. If on the other hand, you can kind of adjust inwardly, outwardly to the software of sorrow to be inserted inside you, what you realize is that yes, you're always sad, but the way you express, the way you live with sadness is through poetry, and writing poetry is creativity, which makes you happy. Then you say, I'd rather be sad all the time so I could write poetry. You know. So yes, you can be happy by being sad. It's like hot ice. You know, it doesn't make sense, but that's usually the way it is. Anyways, I forget. Again, I think as stories go, they're very nice stories. You should never read into them too closely. They're just good stories. Wolf?
I just thought it was interesting that he had to get to that point of losing everything to experience empathy in a sense for all of these things that he lost, and then sort of feel or not feel for all these things that he lost, you know. It's a little complicated for me because also too, I don't know, like one example I can come up is sort of like this artist a long time ago that my friends really admired, Annie Goldsworthy or something like that. And he always did these really incredible pieces out of nature, and you know, you see his wife back at home taking care of all of these kids, and he was out playing in the desert, arranging rocks in a circle. That's great, but it's almost like the same thing, right? Where he's not really experiencing empathy for his partner because he needs all of these things, I guess, in order to experience.
Forgive me for interrupting. It's really difficult to be selfish in the right way. I'll tell you a story, and then we'll kind of unpack empathy and compassion and all of that. I'm from Iran, and divorce is a huge deal. At least it used to be, not anymore. Right now, every 2 marriages, 1 falls apart. We had a friend, he was Persian, he had married an American. At the time, which is 1980s, he was making about $200,000 at Pac Bell in Sacramento. It's like $1 million today. His wife had come from parents who were alcoholics. They had a daughter and a son. Eventually, they both became drug addicts. His wife was a shopaholic. Every day she would spend thousands of dollars. There came a point where he became interested in the essence of philosophy, you know. So much so that he started not caring for his wife and his son and daughter and all that. All of us went to him one day and we said, listen, your kids are still very, very young. If you were to divorce this woman, there's a 90% chance you'll get custody of your kids. You can save them. And what he did was kind of like a tax collector. He sat and he said, okay, if I was to divorce this woman, how much money will I pay her every month? How much money will be in my own pocket? Where am I going to live? And plus, my wife is sick. I need to take care of her. Okay. He exercised compassion and empathy. He stayed married despite all of us telling him to get out.